because we're going to feed back like crazy. Can you carry that?
You're on.
We're feeding back, Dwayne. Sorry, we have a problem. So we need to get that microphone. Or I need to move this, but it's just harder for me to move it at the top. So.
Okay.
Okay, we'll try that. Well, let's see if that works. It's a bit jingly. We're going to be jingly today. Well, that's right. It's the bell theme. It's continuing on with the bell theme. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Villette, and I am a representative of the Affirm United team here at Alberni Valley United Church. Affirm United is a proud partner of the United Church of Canada, supporting the inclusion of all gender identities and sexual orientations. Today's worship service and this fireside chat is part of our ongoing effort to be public, intentional, and explicit in our support of the LGBTQ, I2S+ community and other marginalized people. Today, I have the great privilege of introducing to you three champions of social justice: Bodhi Thompson Gardner, Carol Thompson Gardner, and Bear. Bear's down there sleeping. Bodhi has been an advocate for marginalized people as a professional mental health and addiction counselor for 30 years, educating, advocating, facilitating, encouraging, and being an ally for families, children, and youth while playing a vital role in suicide prevention. They are a leading voice for the LGBTQ I2S+ community, providing educational presentations, facilitating groups, and encouraging open and honest dialogue. Bodhi is a courageous, tenacious, and powerful advocate for social justice and inclusion for all of us. Bodhi's new book, Transgender Heart, is a collection of short stories that trace the heart journey of a small farm child, youth, and adult from rural Saskatchewan across the binary landscapes of life. Carol Thompson Gardner is the author of Lily Loves Beards, a child's picture book that supports gender, creative, and trans children. Together, they advocate for diversity and inclusion by valuing differences as colorful threads in the tapestry of the human family. This is a day of remembrance, but I can't help but be encouraged just having you two with us today to share your message of hope. Everyone, please welcome Bodhi Thompson Gardner, Carol Thompson Gardner, and Bear.
Okay, welcome everyone. Just want to do a volume check. Can everybody hear? If you could just do a thumbs up, that'd be great. Perfect. If you don't already have your microphone muted or your volume muted, if you could do that, that'll probably just help us with some background music, or feedback, sorry. So thank you all for joining us for the Fireside chat. Mostly, you can see I'll poke in. I'm going to be off screen and just having a fireside chat with Bodhi and Carol. Dana is moderating the chat, so we invite you to send in any questions that you would like to pose for the Q&A part of this fireside chat. So she'll moderate that. There's somebody else moderating volume and microphone, those kinds of things. So if you're having any problem with your audio, if you can also put that in the chat, then we'll do the best we can to ensure that most people can hear. So thank you for bearing with us, as this is the first time we're trying to do a Zoom from kind of our sanctuary public space, so we're working a few little kinks out as we go along. So welcome. I'll just come over here. All right, we're here.
We are.
How long have we been planning on this, though? A little while, right? It's sometimes when it's a gathering and a conversation that we've been anticipating for how long? Year and a half, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's at least a year and a half.
A year and a half, yeah. We had such a great plan, and COVID snuck in and changed things on us.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, it's great to be here, and we'll just get started, and people will probably have some questions that they are going to kind of pop in. Now, is that okay if questions come in?
Yeah,
or we
absolutely.
bring
Yes,
them?
yes, yes.
Yeah. And, so you traveled here yesterday?
We did.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to wander around the valley yesterday?
A little bit.
A little bit, but it's chillier here. A little bit chillier here than what we're used to.
It's not like we live in California. We just live on Salt Spring Island. Yeah.
But it's still cooler here.
Yeah.
It's that damp, isn't it? Yeah. So just as we kind of focus and get started, always want to start by acknowledging that we are here in the sanctuary of Alberni Valley United Church, in the midst of the ministry of Courageous Community Center as well. And we live, breathe, play, rest, I like to say, as well, on the unceded territory of the Tishat and the Hupachasit First Peoples, who are people of the New Chalneth Nation. So with deep gratitude, so thankful for the privilege to be a guest in this community, in this place. So just as we begin, did you have something you wanted to start with, or would you like me to pose a question?
I think I just after being a part of the service today, I just want to say that the work that the firm team did and yourself to honor the transgender community today was profound. And it was obvious that Carol and I got really emotional, still feeling that aftermath. That for me, it just felt, yeah, it was the most honored that I've felt within the church being transgender, and I just know that my transgender community that's been chiming in with this whole process will actually feel that too. So thank you so much for that. It was really a beautiful service, and to be a part of it was really huge for me and for Carol and for Bear, because we're quite a diverse family, to be a part of that. So thank you for welcoming us home.
You're welcome. It's our honor and privilege to have you, all three of you, here. And just for those of you joining us who don't have the context of our earlier worship service, and I'm not sure if you can see in behind Carol and Bodhi's video, but we had a candle lighting vigil and named all of the people who have died this past year due to transphobia, violence, hatred, discrimination. And it was a very profound moment for many of us. So, Bodhi, I know from when I heard you introduce yourself, you usually begin by naming and telling us what your pronouns are. I know there's some confusion out there about why it's even important, or why it's important to anyone, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about why it's important to introduce with pronouns and know each other's pronouns?
Sure. So I'll start with my name, just start with, and it was probably, I'm going on probably about 7 years ago now that one of Carol's cousins announced very loudly on Facebook that they were identifying as non-binary and that their name was also being changed at that time to Jasper. And it was at that moment I went, I kind of stopped and realized that they were speaking to me. So the first thing that I felt I needed to do is I needed to claim a name for myself that spoke to who I was and how I walked in the world. So at birth, I was assigned female by the powers that be in the hospital, and but never really resonated with that gender at all. And so, and it never felt like it was a part of me. So it was really significant for me at that moment, along with this young person. I guess that was when I actually felt liberated into being who I was and was able to claim my pronouns of he, him, and they, them. Why I have two separate pieces to that is that I most definitely resonate with the pronoun of he, him. That's been a part of my life growing up and a part of my spirit and my heart and mind. And they, them comes in as well because both Carol and I, and in Carol's book, because it's about it honors gender creative children, is that it's really important for us to honor that piece too and feel more connected sometimes to that non-binary, to not being a part of the social construct of male-female. And so looking forward around equity and even more change in the world, that there's a group of young people right now that are out there that are really reclaiming that piece. And that's where you're going to hear a lot of different pronouns come up. So the significance of them is that they are another part of our identity. We all have them. And it actually validates it, and it gives our identity even more strength. Carol and I actually a few years ago went to the Friendship Center here in Victoria to do some work with some young people, and we got everybody to go around the table and introduce themselves and use their pronouns, and we both kind of stood there afterwards and went, oh my. Because it was like there were so many different ones that we hadn't heard, and then at the same time thought, how brilliant is that? And Carol actually asked them, why would you choose to have pronouns like the ones that you do? And
labels.
Or labels, yeah. And you could speak to that maybe about what their response was.
Yeah, I asked them, we were curious why one person would use so many labels, because there seemed to be 4 or 5 labels that one person was using, and these were all youth from I think age 14 to 20 or something like that, and they said that they used the labels mostly so that they had something to identify with, to explain themselves to their parents, something that their parents could Google. So that was interesting to us, because to me, because my whole focus is the children and the youth, and to me, somehow that I felt like that was really brilliant, because they shouldn't have to explain themselves, especially to their family. My whole thing is I feel that these children and youth should just be able to be their beautiful, unique selves and be accepted, and not have to have labels. However, brilliant on them that they created labels that their parents could Google.
I think that's the brilliance of the human mind, right? Especially in children and youth, right? Is incredible to me, and how sensitive too to kind of also, be knowing, this is what we're offering our parents too, and here's a way, right? Here's a way that you can Google this and find out more information easily and become comfortable, right?
And I think what's happening right now, we hear this so often, is that people are really, the language of fear comes up again too, and they're really afraid to misgender or to use the wrong pronouns. And even myself within the community sometimes will do that too, until I get to really know someone. And so it's more about really, and people will correct you. They will say that's not my pronoun, and that's okay. And that gives us an opportunity to say, well, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you, or I'll be more aware of that. I find that I know when I introduced myself today in the service, I said that I prefer to actually be called Bodhi, because that's what I most identify with. So I think a lot of times it's much easier to use people's names if we're uncertain. It's actually okay to ask people what their pronouns are. And what's interesting, what's happening in lots of organizations, lots of group gatherings, and it kind of it's starting to become more rote and more common, that when people do, when you have meetings or whatever and you have introductions, now people are not only saying their name, but they're also introducing themselves with their pronouns at those meetings.
Yeah. It's becoming more just common, right?
Yeah.
And whereas probably 2 years ago, it wasn't, right? Yeah. It was, for some people, they just didn't even know how to begin to answer that question, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only 2 years ago. So when you put it in, for me anyway, when we put some of these things in context for how quickly in some ways change is happening, there's a little bit of hope there for me anyway.
Absolutely. And it's going to take time, because it's not transgender. The transgender population has been around for a long time. I feel like there's more awareness that's taken place probably since 2017, because that's when Bill C-16 was brought in, where the transgender people were actually acknowledged and seen as a part of the Human Rights Code as well as the Criminal Code. I was actually shocked that they weren't. And when I found out that just got passed, it was like, I even realized at that time that for all these years, transgender people haven't really been saying a lot or practicing their rights out of fear too. So that bill in itself states that we do get to show up, we do get to say who we are, and we do get to ask that our pronouns and our chosen names be used as well. Lots of times, like for myself, my name hasn't been changed legally, because there's a lot of things that I need to do in order to get that happening, and at the same time, it doesn't really need to in order to validate who I am too. So yeah, so it's really important within our organizations that we do those pieces and be aware of those bills, just because it's a good way to support the people that work for you, or the people in your community as well.
For sure. And Bodhi, you talk about Bodhi is your chosen name. Could you tell us a little, is there a story that goes along with name? I wanted to ask that like about 11:15.
Carol and I both we walk in the world in a way that when things show up, there's a reason for them showing up. But there was a lot of different names that we owned a little storefront in Quadra at the time, and so during the day we kind of choose one, and then we would try it on for the day, and if it didn't fit, then we canceled it and moved on to something else. Prior to moving to Quadra, I actually worked at the Friendship Center in Victoria, and one of the groups that I created and ran was a group called Awakening the Warrior Within. It was a men's group. And so, and again, it wasn't tying into the name at all, but then all of a sudden Carol said, what about Bodhi? And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I kind of like that. And then when I looked it up, it actually, the definition of it is awakened one. And so it kind of, I was missing my group of men that I hung out with every day, and at the same time was stepping into my true self and my authenticity, so it made sense. And it really felt right. And so many people said, oh my goodness, you totally are. So it was like, like when I would tell them what my name was, and they were really appreciative of the choice. So yeah, it came to us in a different way too. Lots of people will actually, their chosen name will actually be connected to their given name as well, but just the gender shifts in it.
Thank you. I want to give an opportunity. I'm thinking there might be some questions that are coming in that, no?
No.
Okay.
No.
People might need to be told how to activate their chat.
Oh, okay.
Don't mind me. I was trying to be anonymous and invisible, but I become the center. Sorry. Apologize.
So I'm hoping that everybody online knows that that there is a chat function, that if you click on either participants on your taskbar there at the bottom and the chat icon, you should have a screen that comes up that enables you to type in your questions or comments, anything you'd like us to be aware of, and I'll keep checking back with you, community, to see what your questions are. And in the meantime, Dana's moderating that, so I'll look at her because that's just easier than me trying to read the chat from here. So one of the things that when we first started having some conversations and about workshops and education and learning, we were talking about just kind of a workshop around allyship, inclusion, diversity. Can you talk just a little bit about kind of the importance of allies and allyship? What's the role of people who want to be standing with you?
So one of my favorite quotes that I saw up on a board one day, and I know I spoke to this a few weeks ago with the school district 72, is that it was the best way to describe diversity inclusion was by Verna Myers. And the first thing, diversity means inviting people to the party. And inclusion is about inviting those people to dance at that party. And so when we invite a group of people into a common environment, there's so many different things that we're also inviting in there. We're inviting race in there. We're inviting sexual orientation. We're inviting our gender diversities as well, the different genders. We're inviting the different cultures and races too. And so when we say inviting people to dance, it's not just a matter of inviting people in. It's about including them in that environment too. So if you're looking at it from an equity place, I guess what I would see is if I was invited to this party, to this church, and I brought with me all these values and all these different gifts with me, that people would get curious about maybe how I could be a part of this congregation or a part of the Affirm team. And then the equity piece is about actually giving me a role within that too. Sort of like what happened today. So this was the most powerful form of equity that we would be able to feel in the church service, because when we met that day, both you and Dana were really curious about who we are and how we walk in the world. Then you explored more and found out more about what our gifts were and what we had to offer. And then you invited us back and said, we want you to share those gifts. So that's the piece. So that kind of describes what diversity, inclusion, and equity looks like. It also is, and I would say, the foundation for allyship. So to be an ally is about, it's not about taking on my my cause, but it's more about being a support. So when people, I think when I first actually experienced what allyship meant in an organic way was the first time I walked in a Pride Parade. And I realized that so many of the people around me weren't actually from the community, the LGBTQ2IS community. There was other people there, so there was parents there. There were churches and clergy there walking with their organizations. There was lots of different affiliations throughout those cities that were walking in the Pride Parade too. But it was like, in that moment, I remember feeling in every part of my body that it was okay, I was safe to be there, and all these people were wrapping themselves around me and holding me in that. So to me, allyship is about that. It's making sure that people feel held, that they feel that they can be in an environment and it's safe for them to be there, that there's absolutely no room for discrimination. You know, a true ally too will speak to that discrimination too if they actually witness it or see it, and will help educate people. And for us, it's really important that it's not done in a harsh way, that the education is done in a loving way too, because I can't expect non-judgment and be judgmental. And so people will make mistakes, and if people are willing and wanting to learn, it's really important for me to honor that piece too, and to give them space to do that, and to make mistakes along the way.
Well, and make space for people's fear.
Yeah.
Because in our experience, it's mostly people's own insecurities and fear that hold themselves hostage, so that they don't feel like they have space to show up and be vulnerable. And so it's giving space for other people to be vulnerable as well, because we're showing up vulnerable in our visibility.
In your visibility.
Just walking together.
Yeah. And it's lovely for me, the way in which you honor people's fear, like, and can create those, what I call safe containers, I don't know, but for us to kind of be together and know that that fear and vulnerability, right? They can free us, right? And they can kind of hold us back to continue.
Well, yeah, and thank you for that. And I think part of it is I remember I've always been drawn to work a lot in the Indigenous community. And the last work that I did, I remember one day I was walking down the hallway with my friend Jeanette, and I said, "Why do you think it is that me as a non-Indigenous white person can do well in this environment?" And she says, "Because you know what oppression feels like. It's not the same, but I definitely know what it feels like." And so when you talk about fear and the way that we honor it and address it is that we know what that is. Because we walk, there's some days where I don't feel it at all, but for the most part, it lingers there for me too when it comes to staying safe and knowing my environment and being out in the world, because confrontations can quite often happen. And what's interesting is that I know I shared the story about Jack in my book, about how it doesn't always have to be really a blatant kind of discrimination. I don't know if you've ever heard of aversive discrimination or microaggressions. Yeah, it's like those things still happen, and what that means is that can mean something as simple as someone rolling their eyes, when you walk by, or people staring at you, or scanning your body, or whatever it is. But there's those pieces too that we're trying not to be aware of so much, but sometimes it's really obvious. And what people, I think, and again, I truly believe that a lot of it is about fear and ignorance, for sure. And so awareness is huge. That's the key around the awareness piece, is that for us, being able to create that awareness is to help, to alleviate that fear.
Mhm.
you know, and bring love back into the scene.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I need to just interject here. There's, is it Joanne? Do you have a cat? I keep saying this furball.
My cat is fascinated with Minnie, and every time Minnie's on Zoom, my cat comes.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool. Me too. That's awesome.
We do a prayer circle once a week, and Kitty comes to join us every week.
Oh,
So cool.
so cute.
So there's lots.
Oh, and there's another creature over
Oh.
here. I don't know if any of you are curious as to why we include bear and everything, and what's really interesting about our animals in our lives is that if we really wanted to teach about unconditional love, there are teachers. And I don't feel that I would be preaching to any of the pet owners right now about that, but bear definitely holds space for us, and lots of times when we're, like today, you know, just for the vulnerability and being in a vulnerable state, sometimes all it takes for me is to hold bear, and I can feel that safety and that connection. So that's why I get curious about people's animals, because they're amazing. Oh, there's another one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you, all these wonderful beings, for coming
Yeah,
and
this
join.
is Trixie.
Hey, Trixie.
Oh,
Nice.
So
hey,
sweet.
Trixie.
So awesome.
Our walking buddy.
Oh.
Yeah, I know it was interesting. We were in Port Moody when.
This is my wife, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there this morning. Ford was saying how wonderful it was. I'm just,
And
Oh,
sorry
hi,
for
Ford.
butting in like this, but Linda started it.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
I recognized you from someplace, and I could not figure out where it was until you said Quadra, and I realized I've shopped in your store.
Oh, at Sacred
oh,
Falls?
bye. Yeah, we lived there for 10 years.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Anyways, I apologize for it.
No
We're
worries.
trying to share the same iPad.
I
no
see.
worries.
You have a question?
We do have a question, and I can't unmute because there's too much feedback.
No worries.
Okay.
So the question is, what was it like to revisit your childhood experience when you were writing your book?
Oh, so the question, did everyone hear the question, Dana?
Dana, I can't hear you.
Okay, I will share.
It looks like you're muted, Dana.
Oh,
Yeah, I can repeat, I've got it in the chat here.
Okay.
What was it like to revisit your childhood experience when you wrote your book, Bodhi?
so what was interesting about my book is that I've always had this vision and this dream to write a book, and I didn't really want to go too much into the trauma. I didn't want it to focus on that. But I didn't know how to do that. I'd sit down and I'd write and I'd go, yeah, I can't do this. And then one morning Carol woke me up. She says, I think I have an idea for your book. So we went out on the deck and we're having our morning coffee, and she says, what if you wrote about the things that helped you? And
The things that kept you alive.
yeah, that kept me alive and kept me safe all these years. And so what ended up happening is I ended up writing this book that has all these different little chapters in it that speak to people. It speaks to places. There was even land that held me that was really powerful and profound. Things, objects. There was objects. I had this huge identity thing with my Jeep. And my felt boots. I had these little felt boots that I used to wear when I was younger. And animals. So doing that work, going back and doing that, and doing it from a place of gratitude. So at the end of every chapter, there's a gratitude around those experiences. Is that it really helped me to remember that those are the pieces that I need to hang on to. That I'm here because of that. And so what's interesting about that is that I would write a chapter, I would come out of my space where I was writing and I'd be in tears. So to answer your question about it, it was very cathartic. There was lots of moments of yeah, just remembering and just being really grateful and thankful. And at the same time, there was lots of things, like even today when I spoke about the 3 ministers in my life, that there's a missing those people, and a longing to reconnect somehow. So it was a reconnection too. But and there's some humor in it too. There was some really definitely some fun moments within my childhood that are reflected in the book as well. So yeah, it was okay. Some of the people that have been reading it, what's really been really awesome about it is that one of the most consistent pieces of feedback is that people are actually going back into their lives and reconnecting with some things that held them. And it could be something as simple as a teddy bear that they had. And actually one of my friends went through this whole process around this teddy bear and how they hadn't spent any time with it, and that they really needed to do that again because it really held them. But it's significant. And I believe my last chapter in my book is about my blanket. And so things that really give us comfort is important. So people were really reflecting on that. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but yeah, it definitely was cathartic. There was a lot of things that I worked through, and it also reminded me how powerful gratitude is.
Yeah, extracting the blessings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I don't know if everybody would have heard that. Extracting the blessings. Yeah, I'm gonna do a little. I don't know if people can see or not. Yeah, just a little plug.
So the picture on the book actually was taken at Quadra, because Carol and I we got married there.
At Sacrilege.
Oh, did you? Oh, it's a beautiful place.
And that was one of my. That was definitely something I never thought was possible when I was younger. That I would be able to marry a woman, and that was really important for me. So that's why it was really important for me that be on the cover of the book. Hold up the book.
Over where? Oh,
Nice.
getting direction from all sides here. The tech booth.
I just wanted to make sure that.
Okay. It's probably just a good opportunity for me to say too, I know that some of you, it looks like you might be having some difficulty with sound. We also are live streaming this, so there'll be a video recording. In case you can't hear well, you could always go back to that a little bit later, and we'll put a link up when that's ready to be offered. But I love your book, Bodhi.
Oh,
I read it really quickly the first time, and now I'm starting to turn down the pages. That's what I do. And last night I was rereading the chapter. I can't remember the name of the area. Oh, Baker's Beach.
Yes.
Yeah, and your relationship with eagles and the way in which that eagle feather came to you. Some amazing stories of connecting with what held you and what's kept you alive. It's a beautiful lens in, right?
Yeah.
Carol, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your book. How did you come to write this book, Lily Loves Beards, which we got to hear this morning? It was beautiful.
Yeah. Just listening to all Bodhi's stories of their childhood, and Bodhi has a really strong connection with their dad. Their dad's passed away now, but throughout their childhood, from a really young child, probably 4, always worked out on the farm with their dad, and never really spent a lot of time in the kitchen with their mom, where they should have been as a girl, where Bodhi's sister spent most of her time learning to cook and learning to do female things. So supposedly, right, in our social construct. So it was learning all those stories and hearing the pain of the child. So I wanted to honor Bodhi's child, but I also wanted to honor all the gender creative, gender fluid, gender queer children that are struggling right now, that are, doing research for my book. There's so many children, young children, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old children who are out and as advocates and doing TED Talks and, suing their parents where they have to. Like, it's just crazy what's going on for these children that are just trying to have a voice. They're just trying to have space to exist, just to exist. And it's heartwarming for me when I see families who are embracing their children, who are listening to their children, who are allowing them and holding them up to share their uniqueness and their brilliant light with the world. So Lily, the character, herself is gender creative. She's 5 years old, and the place where the story takes place mostly is the barber shop. And that came to me in a dream, Mr. Beasley's barber shop. And so I wanted to, extract Bodhi's small child, her gender at the time her, but their this gender creative child out of this rural Saskatchewan landscape, which was very binary, and put them into a scenario that could celebrate them, could celebrate who they were, and celebrate that the joy and Lily's she's a very cheerful, outgoing child that is not intimidated by the bully. And I wanted to put that forward too, that to celebrate that part of our children that it is important to highlight that I didn't want to put the focus on the bully, like a lot of children's books put a focus on the bully, and I feel like it already gets enough attention.
So what's interesting about that is that so this is another piece for us too around this book, is that last summer we spent the whole summer going to Prides with Lily. We said that we spent
2019.
we spent the whole summer chasing a 5-year-old around BC, and it was amazing, because a huge part of why we're doing the work that we're doing, and what really inspired me when I was liberated by Carol's cousin, was that I started doing some research into statistics. And what's really sad and unfortunate is that in addition to the murders that take place within our community, the suicide rate amongst transgender youth is around 41%. And when I first heard that statistic, I thought, oh my God, I've never worked with statistics that were that high before, maybe 6 or 8%. And when I saw it was 41%, I said to Carol, we really need to be doing more work to create awareness and educate so that we can support these young people. So in the book, going back to Carol's book, unconditional love is so obvious in the book. It's also obvious in Lily, because the bully kind of just gets brushed off in a way that it's not unkind. It's just sort of like, yeah, I hear you, and this is who I am. And so that's the power of unconditional love, and that's the power of acceptance. And also, if a child is understood and accepted within their home and comes out as gender creative or how they identify transgender, that if that's acknowledged and accepted, that percentage rate goes way down.
To 4%.
Really?
Yeah. So if we could get everyone in that space, that number would eventually just be deleted.
If they have the family support,
Yeah.
children have family support.
Mhm.
This is statistics through the family acceptance project out of the San Francisco University. And if they have just family support, that statistic goes down to 4%. So that's really, that's really important that
Really important.
families support their children.
Mhm.
It's interesting, some of the young children that Carol's been following too online is that one of the moms in the States, and I can't remember what the affiliation was or church affiliation, but the mother had to make a decision between the church and her child.
Mm.
The church,
She
the
gave up
church
the church.
pressure thing.
Yeah, so the church, was able to give up the church.
So the question that you'll have to repeat.
Yes.
What should you tell LGBTQ2 plus youth in regards to guardians that are struggling with, or what could you share with the guardians that are struggling with either accepting the youth? What are some key things? Or the other reverse of that is, what could you tell youth if youth are coming forward and coming into their own? What could you tell them to sort of work with the adults in their life who may be struggling to accept them for who they are? So it's a two.
Right. So I guess the key piece in that is that, when I think about if my child came forward and said that this is who I am and this is how I identify, the first thing that I think I would probably have to go through is maybe, I think there's fear attached to it. Like when you look at the stats, when you look at what's happening in the communities, parents definitely will feel some fear because they definitely don't want their children to be more vulnerable out in the community. So it's about giving them space. It will be about giving me space to actually feel those feelings. And then at the same time, I think as a parent, getting informed. So right now on Vancouver Island, Transgender BC is really quite active, and there's lots of resource information on that site specifically for parents. On the 18th of November, this past week, was the very first parent support group here in Port Alberni. So getting attached to a parent support group or even reaching out to people within that support group to have some discussions. There's some really also beautiful testimonies that go on the internet through YouTube where parents talk very openly through TED Talks or through their children about their experiences. I think to normalize it for the parent themselves because what you'll realize when you're talking to anyone, and this is how the magic of support groups is that you realize that you're not the only one that's having those feelings, and it's okay. Because sometimes parents will actually say that they're feeling a loss, and there's a grieving process that goes with that too. Because and eventually get to a place where they can see that the child is still there, their person is still there, their personality is still there, who they are as a human being is still there. They're just changing how they identify. And in regards to youth, wow, I'm connected to a youth group right now where I live, and what I'm finding is that, and the majority of them are, I would say, probably around, between 12 and 14 years old. What's really interesting about these young people is that they're the change makers right now, and so they're really adamant about getting that information out there. They're really adamant about making people accountable and responsible for using the right pronouns or addressing me the right way or making change right now. And so part of my role is to hold them in a space of definitely of understanding and at the same time helping them to see that we need to really be supportive of people too in this change taking place. I think too, what I'm hearing from these young people is they're exhausted. They're really tired of having to be the educators and the awareness makers, And so it's really important that we don't rely too much on our youth to be the educators, that we don't expect that even from the community at large to do that unless it's a part of the role that they've taken on, and not to burn them out. The internet is so powerful. Like we're in a time now where we have so much information just at our fingertips. So it's really important that, and like what Carol mentioned before about that, the youth saying that they choose labels that their parents can Google, because then they can get the information, and then they can actually provide that insight, and get that awareness, and be more of in an accepting role, and not expecting too much out of the youth to be that educator. I am hoping that whoever answered that question, or asked that question, that I answered that okay, or that help was helpful.
They said yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Just as you're talking, I'm wondering kind of I guess I'm kind of move out into the macro of the community, right? So what can communities do to be like, what would it look like if a community was an ally? And what would we change kind of in the face in our community or in our buildings? I don't know. It's kind of,
Well, you as a church, and it's really interesting, and part of how this is part of my daily routine, or my routine when I'm out in the world, is that, for example, if I have to go shopping, I already know in my community where there's gender neutral bathrooms. That way I don't have to make sure that I don't drink water before I leave the house, that I don't have to go to the washroom when I'm out in the community, because it's not always safe for me to be, it's definitely not safe for me to be in gender affiliated washrooms. And so that's a key piece, and I'm always watching for it, so definitely it's happened here at the church. So good work on that. And again, it's about bringing people into, or in the work environments, definitely. It's about that, and it's also about having it as a part of the awareness. Because it's a part of because our rights are part of Bill C-16, I think that it's the most cost effective way to eliminate having to go through the Human Rights Commission is to get aware. And so when you're teaching people in your employment situations about how to not be discriminatory towards anyone, you're actually really valuing not only the people that are diverse in your community or your employment situation, but you're also honoring the people that are unaware, and giving them space to actually be more supportive.
Carrie would like to add to some of the things that are currently happening in the community.
That'd be
to support
awesome.
youth.
Yeah.
So if you can ask her to unmute and put on the video, or put on the video.
Yeah.
She's on video.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello.
Carrie.
There she is.
hi, Carrie.
Hi, thank you. I just heard you mention about the caregiver and parent group that just started.
Yes.
I just wanted to let everybody know that myself and Deb, my co-worker through ADAPS, we actually facilitate the group.
Nice.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah. So it is funded by Transcare, and we started our first group last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows any caregivers or parents of trans or non-binary youth, more than welcome to come join us on a Wednesday night. We're supposed to be at the church, but we've had to move it to Zoom. So just wanted to let everybody know that. Thank you for bringing that up, Bodhi. That's awesome.
Well, it was on the website. I noticed it right away, and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Because I actually
And
heard.
then just FYI for everybody else who's on the call, that two other groups that we're doing through ADAPS is we do a wild youth group. So it's kind of a more casual group. Wednesdays after school, we're on Zoom, unfortunately. But any youth from LGBT and allies can come hang out with us. We just play games and watch movies and stuff. So we'll have to be a bit creative on Zoom about that. And then the last one we do is Gender Journeys. So it's for youth, 13 to 18 or 19, and it's more of a 6-week processing group. And we've had 2 sessions already, so anybody that's new to come will have to do our next session, just because since we've already run 2 groups, it's now a closed group, and we have about 6 or 7 youth that join us. So,
Oh,
yeah,
so
just
That's
wanted
so
to bring
good.
that-
Thank
you
you.
for bringing that up, Bodhi.
Yes, thank you, Carrie, for all the work that you're doing. So that answers part of Minnie's question too, is like, what can the community do? And so, yeah, there's so much power in people coming together with common.
Can Carrie also just speak to Alberni Valley Pride and just some of the things that they're doing within the community?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Please, Carrie.
Sure. I'll put my work email in the chat, so if anybody has people that they know and youth that they know that they want to do those groups, they can send me an email. The other hat that I have is I'm the current chair of Alberni Valley Pride Society here.
Oh, nice.
Also on the call is Carl, who's a member at large,
Hi,
and
Carl.
our new vice chair is Leanne, so they're both here with us. We do things, we've done events with the United Church movie nights, we do Pride in June, we do Friday night coffee at Bird Beans. Obviously everything's kind of on pause right now, but you can fire us an email if anybody is interested, albernivalleypride@gmail.com. And yeah, we're just here to be a connection and be support and plan activities and stuff.
You know, it's so amazing, Carrie, and I don't know if you noticed this last year, but with Stonewall having its 50th anniversary, it almost felt like to me that every small community in all of Canada decided to have a Pride event. And what was really, really sweet was that I'm originally from Saskatchewan, and so that'd be, in a lot of places would be unheard of. My community didn't have one, and I get it. But in the northern communities, there was this one city that 10 people showed up at their event. It was so much fun to be witness to, and that's the thing is that when you said that you have 7 youth that are participating in your program, that's huge.
We actually walked with the Duncan youth.
Yeah, Duncan had
in 2019.
yeah, they put their own pride on too, so that was really awesome. And what was really interesting is that they forgot to get permission to use the street, so we couldn't do it on the street, so we did the sidewalks. It was awesome. We took over the sidewalks.
There's always a creative way.
That's right. Nice to meet you, Leanne and Carl, too. Thank you for all
Yes,
your work,
thank
too.
you.
Yes, absolutely.
So Carl's just wondering, where are you from? In
Oh.
Saskatchewan.
Okay, now I'm really going to expose myself. And that's no problem. I'm from Theodore, Saskatchewan. So it's a community of about 300 people. I write about it in my book, so it's already been exposed. But I went to school in a school system, was kindergarten to grade 12, and there was probably about 100 kids in the whole school. And when you entered high school, you actually went upstairs. So it was a higher school.
That's awesome.
But yeah, definitely a really small community. Some progression happening there, but not really. How about you, Carl? Where are you from?
I'm originally from Regina, Saskatchewan,
Oh, yeah, okay. The Windy City.
but now I live in Alberni.
Yes.
Thanks, Carl.
So I don't know if any of you have ever been to Regina, but Regina is much like my home community. There's no trees.
The prairies, right?
The big skies.
I lived in Portal, North Dakota, and Regina was the big town in which.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Big shopping center. Yeah, the Dakotas are close. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just right on the border, half in Canada, half in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Nice.
So many connections. So I guess we kind of get going and find out, where our life paths have crossed.
Yeah.
Just, I'm sure we're probably needing to draw to a close at some point here. Just wondered if we could go back to some of the terminology that is used. We're talking about gender expression and gender identity, sexual orientation, and a couple other ones that you use, Carol. And can you just say a little bit about kind of the differences, right, between like some of those terminologies?
Sure. So, Yeah, so again, gender is definitely on a spectrum, but, and like I mentioned before, when we're born, we're usually given, our sex is actually identified. So we're either identified as male or female based on a scan of our little bodies when we come into the world. Gender identity absolutely is different than that, in that it's more about how, it's not about our physical being, it's how we identify in our heart and our mind. And so it's like, how do I feel here? And how does it affect how I walk in the world? So that my gender identity, like I mentioned before, is he, him. And so that, to me, is how I would identify. My expression is usually this. I love my vest. My vests were my armor. There's a chapter in my book about my vest too. I tend to present, I guess, as society would put it, as more masculine. Expressions can vary though. To give you an example around the fluidity of the gender expression is that one day Carol and I were at Thrifty's and this little person came running up to the till with their unicorn hat on, their t-shirt that looked like a tuxedo, and their tutu and their blue jeans. It was the most amazing, it was the most amazing gender expression that I've ever been witness to, and just wanted to really hug them and honor them. And we're seeing more and more of that, that there's more of there can be more of a crossover too. So when you're looking at the non-binary expression may be a lot different too. We can't always base how people identify anymore on how they present, but it's their expression and how they feel about themselves.
I think that like our biggest thing is to teach from a space of love and acceptance and inclusion, and it's important to leave space for all these humans to show up however they want to show up, in whatever way they want to show up. If it's, and the gender fluid part is that just from one moment to the next moment, they might feel differently in one moment than they do in the next moment, and that's okay. That whatever, however they want to show up, that's okay. That they're unconditionally loved, and that if they have whatever labels they have, that's okay too. And just to ask them specifically, how are you identifying in this moment, right? Like in Lily's book, the Lily's mom says, who are you today? Because they might be different one day from the next day, and that all of that is okay. That even though that this binary world has, that we've lived in this binary system, nobody should have to fit in these boxes. And that I feel like the non-binary children and youth are breaking down the boxes because they don't want to be pinned.
So one of the last definitions that you were asking about is around sexual orientation, and that's who we're attracted to, both emotionally and physically. And so if a male is attracted to a female, their sexual orientation may be stated as heterosexual. The same gender being attracted to one another is the sexual orientation would be homosexual. And then there's others. There's pansexual, there's asexual, and then there's more and more and more evolving out of that. And again, it's all about who we're attracted to. Yeah. And it's about, again, like Carol was mentioning before, it's like who do we love? Yeah.
Who do we love?
So there's one last question.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just read the whole thing. Because we can never assume someone's general identity based off their gender expression, how might we move around the world and assure we are being mindful of this? Do we introduce ourselves with our preferred pronouns and ask theirs every time we meet?
It's an option. I think the best way to start is with asking people, are introducing yourselves how we always have, by our names.
Mm.
And then as you get more into the discussion, more about asking that, I think that's going to become more and more of a rote question. And then at the same time, my hope is that we don't have to ask that question at all. That we just honor one another for who we are, and then our names, the names that we give ourselves, or the name that's been given to us. That's the first thing that needs to be honored. It's really interesting, when I was working in an Indigenous community, one of the things that I noticed right away was that when people introduce themselves to each other, they'd say, hi, my name is Bodhi, and I'm from such and such nation. And what was interesting around that, I asked a colleague of mine, the significance of that, and one of it is that it was an insurance to ensure that when they connected, that if they had an attraction, that possibly they may be related or not. So that was one way of finding out. And another thing is that it's about connection. It's another form of connection. So when I started to implement that in the community that I was working in, it was really interesting how I would, if someone said, well, I'm from Alert Bay, and I'm from Alert Bay, I'd go, oh, do you know so-and-so? And so it became a part of their identity, and also identifying their community and where they came from. So it's kind of the same. In some ways, it's more cultural that way, but for us, it's more about, definitely when we're sitting in group settings, I think it should become more of a given thing that we actually introduce ourselves by our names, and then by our pronouns too, so that we can be more respectful that way.
Thank you. Yeah. Did you have?
I'm wondering if you're able to ask the group, just recognizing that Bodhi and Carol are going to come back to Port Alberni.
Yeah.
Are there topics that
yes.
they are of interest in?
Okay.
And what are those topics, if they can write that in the chat?
Perfect. So I'm not sure if you were able to hear Dana. We are hopeful that Carol and Bodhi and Bear will be able to come back in the future. We're just wondering, in terms of workshop or fireside chat or any other creative way in which we can be in community, are there topics or that you would like to see addressed, or themes if they were to come back? So you can either unmute yourself and just put those out there, or put them in the chat, or...
I just want to say that I really appreciate being able to do the work this way. I know Dana has probably heard this from us before too, is that it's so, the part that we're missing is the human connection. I'm sure you all are. I think to go deeper into a lot of these topics, it's really important for us. Like, I love that I can see all of you right now. It's really important for me to be able to do that, because I think sometimes when we go deeper into these subjects that we can open up things, and it's important for me that I be able to see that everyone's okay. And that you're going to be okay after we talk about these things too, because I know that a lot of the discussions can hit pretty close to home, and not always have our experiences been okay experiences. And so, that being said, I know that I'm hearing, as we've been talking, and sharing, that there's some people in the community definitely on this screen that are doing some really beautiful work in supporting each other, and just really want to encourage that to continue to happen. My hope and my dream and my aspiration is that the suicide rate goes away, and that we're able to just accept each other and see each other as human beings. I think the words that were being used today is shining lights, and we definitely all are. Everyone on the screen today is. The fact that you're all showing up and being such loving people gives me hope too. Interesting, when I went out the door here just after the service, that right above the door when you walk into the other part of the church here, in big letters, is hope. And definitely feel that here for sure. It's a beautiful space to come into. The energy in here is incredible. It's safe. It's such a a warm embrace when you come in here. So if you can tap in online to the church services, it is great, but when those doors get swung open again, I totally encourage everyone to run through and be a part of this, because it's pretty amazing, it's pretty powerful. Is there any other questions, Dana?
There's no other questions. There's
Oh, I
a
wanna
lot of
see that.
thank you, but I was just my fingers. There we go. Stacy has been graphic recording,
I know.
and that's what I was sort of putting on my screen, the service for today, as well as during our fireside chat. And I know Stacy's still continuing. Oh, she's adding some hope, but that's what I was going to sort of show you
Nice.
as we go through. Sure.
Need some help? Nope.
I'll just give you a quick glance, and we will take a picture and then show it
Oh,
online, so you're able to see
that's so nice.
some of the symbols.
All the shining hearts there, shining lights.
So cool.
So people on the bottom,
Oh,
lots of,
She could say hello.
but we will put that on our webpage just so you can refer back to it as well, or Facebook. That is it.
Thanks Dana. Just want to thank everyone who's continuing in this space, offering leadership. So there's a number of people here, and a number of people have worked hard to kind of just pull this together and move with the fluidity of it. And we will certainly continue to do that. So as you have a chance even to think after we end this call, if there is something you would love to be a focus of like a workshop or a circle, and maybe even into kind of the future when we'll have a vaccine for COVID, and that'll mean we can actually gather in circle.
And hug each other.
And do all those kinds of things. Either put it in the chat, or there's multiple email addresses on the Courageous Community Center website. You can go there and send us an email too. So Carol and Bodhi and Bear, I want to thank you again for being here, for helping us to hold this recognition of Transgender Day of Remembrance, and yes, and to hold it in our heart, in my heart. When you talk about sometimes as we move deeply into some of these areas, and we're moved, and we need to make sure that each other is safe. And I think we who were here this morning experienced some of that, and I continue to experience that as I just look behind you and look at the candles that we lit and the names that are represented there, and those shining lights their physical presence has gone from this world and gone in such a violent way, and yet their love and their spirit shines through. Just a little bit of my belief system, but anyway. And their story encourages us, at least encourages me to continue to offer what I can into the work with social justice. So anyway, thank you for being here, and thank you for bearing with all of the technology.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us, for being here. Really appreciate your presence, your questions, and all of what you do to support people with love and kindness and graciousness and respect in the world.
Love to you all.
Love to you all.
Blessings.
Let's continue to walk together.
Yes.
Bye for now.